7 minutes after 7 o'clock, 7:07. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the show. And we have a guest in the studio with us this morning.
Yes, we do. Kelly Canavan. She's with, I want to make sure I get this right, Accokeek, Mattawoman, Piscataway Creeks Council.
That's right.
Yay. All right. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for coming in. Now, you guys had a busy day on Friday. You were over in Calvert County.
Yep.
You were a big hearing because your organization, who did you sue? You sued the county commissioners. And did you sue the planning commission over there?
Yes.
Okay. Explain why you decided to do that over this whole Cove Point issue.
Okay. So back in November, the commissioners passed a text amendment, which is just a change to the zoning ordinance. And that can be a legal thing. And sometimes it's a useful and helpful thing. But they did it in an illegal way. The reason it was illegal is that it was a specific favor for Dominion Cove Point. And it exempted Dominion Cove Point from a regular permitting process, which meant that they didn't have to go through the process of getting a number of permits. They didn't have to go through all sorts of reviews and things that would have been safeguards for the residents of Calvert County. And it also eliminated the zoning on the property, which is a dangerous precedent for the state of Maryland, because if that's allowed to happen here, it can happen anywhere in Maryland.
So that was the premise. You guys went in Friday, and when do you expect to have some resolution to this?
We don't know. That is completely at the pleasure of the judge, and
Which is an outside judge, you told us, which I wasn't aware of, right?
Yeah, Calvert County made the decision. This is not a request by us. Calvert County made the decision to bring in a retired judge from the Court of Special Appeals of Maryland. Mm-hmm. And that may have been done because there are only 2 circuit court judges in Calvert County, and they may have been concerned about conflict of interest or things like that.
Okay, go ahead, T.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your organization, the Accokeek, Mattawoman, Piscataway Creek Council. First of all, find a shorter name.
I know, it's horrible,
it's
right?
Well, no, but they say the AMP. Creek Council, right?
We say AMP Creeks Council.
AMP Creek Council.
What is it you guys do? What do you do on a daily basis?
We do mostly land use and zoning policy work, and that can take a lot of forms. Sometimes it's lawsuits. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's community events, activities, education, outreach. Sometimes it's working with schools.
Is it mostly environmental based?
Mostly.
Okay.
Let me ask you.
Is that the driving force behind this lawsuit?
What are you hoping to gain from the lawsuit? I guess is like, okay, so are you hoping that Cove Point is never built? Because that's what people are thinking. They're thinking that, okay, so you're suing the county because of this permits issue. Mm-hmm. Are you hoping that Cove Point, that they don't have this new expansion happening? Or do you just want the permits process reinstated so everybody's protected?
I want both.
You're thinking it too. Okay,
that's a real thing. And just if I can answer your question also, T-Bone, sometimes people get the wrong idea if I say we're an environmental organization. That's not quite right. People sort of have the tree hugger idea in mind. That's not really what we do. We sometimes say that we are more concerned with the human environment. Mm-hmm. In other words, the way that human beings enact with the natural environment around them. So when we're looking at projects, we're not only looking at frogs and turtles and bugs. I mean, those things are important and cool, and I love them. But we're also
even
looking...
bugs, Kelly? Come on, bugs.
Well, maybe some really specific
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
That's my concern. I think I might have a bug in my ear.
So they just crawled in there this morning?
I think that might be going on. And I didn't want to say that because it's very gross, but that's in the back of my mind what I'm really worried about.
There's like a roach on your eardrum
right
now.
That might
so gross.
Listen, and I'm going to tell you right now, if that's the case.
Kelly doesn't want you to kill that bug. Let it free and live.
I'm not kidding at all. If the doctor looks in there and sees it in 10 eyes wiggling,
or a creepy crawly,
I want them to kill me.
Or a spider
because
that's
there's
laying
no
eggs.
way I can. Yeah, right. There's no way I can live if that's happening.
Okay, you need like a bug vacuum to suck it out.
Yes, I need a shop vac.
So, and you also don't want Cove Point built. You don't want the expansion project to happen.
Right.
Now,
Okay.
that's where you and I part ways.
Okay, but I have a question.
Okay.
Now, especially with this permitting process, you don't trust FERC. You don't trust the feds to do the right thing because this assessment came through with FERC. FERC says they got to make some changes, but we approve this. So, according to the Calvert County commissioners, they're saying we don't have a staff member that can inspect this type of equipment. So we are going to let FERC handle it.
So,
And you disagree with that?
yeah, it's a really convoluted process. It's very confusing, and it's easy to see why the Calvert County commissioners could genuinely be confused. I think they made a bad decision, obviously.
Right.
I don't think they're quite as confused as they're saying, but that's me. But it really is a confusing situation because you have kind of permits that depend on other permits. So, for example, in the FERC permitting process, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission process, they're supposed to be looking at what local agencies did. So, in order for them to issue a permit, they're supposed to look and see what Calvert County did, for
Sure,
example,
right.
first. And if Calvert County just says, we're not going to do anything, then FERC should not be able to move forward with their process because they don't know what the local people said. And that's because Calvert County is uniquely qualified to know what's best for Calvert County, and they have local laws in place that FERC doesn't know about. Looking at things, just for example, Chesapeake Bay regulations. You know, there are so many regulations regarding the Chesapeake Bay and keeping it clean and safe and, you know, and good for the fishing industry and whatever.
What do you say to Dominion? And we've run the ads here on the air. And listen, it's not like I'm getting a check from Dominion, so I don't really have a dog in this fight.
Okay.
But
I wish.
yeah, right.
Are you
sure.
kidding? Some
But-
of those checks, I would love that.
But at least I can recognize the fact that, look, we have to make energy in this country. Is fracking the best thing? Probably not. But we're never going to make the amount of energy that we need or consume locally, nationally, or globally with solar panels and windmills. I wish we could, but we can't. And President Obama, when he was giving his speech last week in Europe at the G7, because we kicked Russia out,
Right, we did.
so he's the first thing out of his mouth. He says, "Listen, we're taking aggressive steps to curb pollution. We've put these new mandates on coal plants, and we're going to be amping up natural gas." That was the first thing he said. Now, look, something has to give here, and is natural gas the end-all and be-all? I don't think so. I don't know. But I want the lights to come on when I hit the switch. I want to be able to drive places. Things have to happen.
Now, I totally agree with you on that point. It's hard not to agree with you on that point, that we need the lights to come on, we need heat, we need, to be able to cook in our homes, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a certain amount that, unless you're a primitivist, you have to give on.
Yes, I agree.
Primitivist, I like that.
I like that, yeah.
You have to say at some point we needed the energy from somewhere. And right now, I also agree with you that we're not equipped to go completely clean energy. But I think it's something that we're moving towards. And I think that what's happening that's a big problem is that we're putting so much of our human energy into the wrong fight. So, for example, the gas industry is shoving really hard to move fracking forward and to move these export plants forward. And we think instead that they should be pushing really hard to develop cleaner energy.
Which would be what?
So, for example, in the field of solar energy, there have been all kinds of exciting bits of progress made. What
was exciting was when Solyndra stole $500 million of my tax money and left.
Did that happen? Straight from your bank account?
Straight from my bank account. I funded that.
Oh, my goodness.
And then the next thing you know, he has bugs in his ears.
Where's my parade?
Seriously.
Wow, it's a rough morning for you.
It's a rough morning
it's
all
not
around.
Easy.
It's a rough morning.
Oh my gosh.
Solar would be great if it wasn't so expensive. And listen, T and I just looked at putting solar panels up. There are great ways to do it. I
want to be off the grid as much as the next person.
Oh, well,
I got
you
my own
want to do
agenda.
that. You want to be a primitive. I'm going to start using that, a primitive.
Listen, I want to be in a bunker making my own water.
I know you do.
But be that as it may.
But we've got to get there. We have got to get there. And we're not there yet. But the thing is, with fracking, for example, we weren't here a couple of years ago either.
Right.
Fracking has made, huge strides in what they can get out of the ground.
Yeah, huge.
The gas industry and what they can get out of the ground in the last several years. If that effort had been put into developing better solar energy, we might be in a different place right now.
But do you blame the gas? The gas industry is not the solar industry. Now, I see BP doing their whole, we're also solar. Listen, they're oil and their gas. Cabot, Chesapeake, those organizations, they're natural gas. So you need to get an organization that's all about solar. Why damn the gas industry and the small farmer and the landowner in Northeast Pennsylvania who is finally making some money off of their natural resources out of the ground? You don't want to tell those people that their checks we're not going to have your checks coming anymore.
Well, see, now that is partly where we might differ a little bit. I don't want to say that to them. I should be clear about that. I do not want to tell people that. The part that I differ about is the deal that they're getting, because so often those landowners and farmers are getting cheated by the industry. Somebody comes onto their property and says,